live streamers. We are live on the interwebs, and we are going to be doing that very thing that everybody loves to talk about. We're talking Pittsburgh Pirate baseball. That's right. The Pirates will be good. I promise you. Maybe not in 2023, but who knows? But one thing I do know is returning to the show to talk about his beloved Pirates is going to be Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates. Let's check it out. It's Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Hey, I got a lower third. If you're watching me on the YouTubes or if you're watching me streaming, you can please call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for the last decade or so. I spent the last 4 seasons here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Hey, someone's already in the chat. Someone's coming right in. Jeff Cohen's in there. Hey, Jeff Cohen from Baseball and Barbecue, friend of the podcast, is here. But guess what, Jeff? We'll get to you in a second. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Be sure to tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, including, let's just take one at random here. Which one should I pick? How about Locked On Pirates with Ethan Smith? Hey, Ethan Smith, who I think might be hungover. What's with the sunglasses at what is 9:44 in the evening in Pittsburgh? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. The sunglasses is kind of a new look for me that I've picked up in the off season when I record these shows. Sometimes the light on the camera and the light, kind of gets a little strainy. So this can help,
Yeah.
because and I may or may not be promoting a phenomenal song that was very, very popular maybe when Sully was my age.
Are you talking about the future being so bright that you've got to wear shades?
No,
Okay,
obviously
sir.
sunglasses at night.
Oh,
Like I
that's
said,
right. Okay, I knew it was one of those.
9:45. We're getting
That's
there.
true.
We're
That's
getting
true. Well,
there.
there you go. Hey, little note here. Ethan and I did a show a couple of weeks ago, and the sound, evidently we recorded it on CB radios. Was that basically how we did it? Like, what's your handle? We got a couple of Smokies out there, so it was the sound just didn't come out very well at all, and I decided to scrap it and say, "Do you know what? I'm not going to play it." It actually ended up on the Locked On Pirates feed, but even you were like, "Yeah, this sound stunk." So I said, "Do you know what, Ethan? Let's do it again." The name of this
Yeah.
episode, if you're watching on the YouTubes or if you're listening, the episode is called "Trying Again." And is there a more appropriate mantra for the Pirates than "We're going to try again"? We're
Well,
trying
I mean,
again.
they've been trying again since 1979, or for closer reference, 1992. But
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see when trying again actually works for them, based off of doing the same thing. Because what's the old saying, Sully? You do the same thing, or what is it? I knew it, and then forgot it.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
There you go. And I mean, I guess I'm an insane person because I talk about the Pirates every day on Locked On Pirates,
There
doing the
you
same
go.
thing every day. But so it
Well,
depends on how you look at it.
well, I'll tell you, friend of the podcast and former guest Jeff Cohen, he says the Pirates is one of the Major League Baseball's great franchise. Baseball is better when the Pirates are competitive. I totally agree with you, Jeff, and I have an incredibly soft spot in my heart for the Pittsburgh Pirates and their history and everything like that. I have the Clemente biography right there as I'm pointing at my little library of books and everything like that. But it's been a lean save for the 2013, 2014, 2015 seasons when they made the playoffs 3 straight years. They got to within one swing of the NLCS in 2013, and they had one of the best teams in baseball in 2015, but they ran into Jake Arrieta at the worst time. Um, it's been downhill ever since. Now the Pirate, I mean, again, I don't mean to be a dick, but the Pirates have been it's been a rough few years, to the point where arguably the best player, Bryan Reynolds, has asked for a trade. And I always find when it becomes public that a player asks for a trade, um, that's rough, because that team has zero leverage when it comes to trading him now, because they know he wants out.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And the big thing with Reynolds, ever since really I've been the host of this podcast for the last 2 years, last trade deadline, he was reportedly available. He was not moved. The deadline before, he was an all-star. He was a gold glover, silver slugger, whatever award you wanted to give to the guy that he was a finalist for. And the one constant thing that has been a constant here with the Bryan Reynolds saga up for the Pittsburgh Pirates is the asking price has always been way too high,
Right.
way too high. And I've already heard some people say that they're looking for a Soto type deal. Obviously, they're not getting that for
No.
Reynolds. Um, you've heard other people in the past say that Julio Rodriguez was their asking price from the Seattle Mariners a few years ago. Keep in
Why
mind,
not
this was a
Trout?
few years ago. I mean,
Why not
and I'm
Trout?
at this point, why not? I mean, because if you have no intention of trading him, which is what the Pirates have come out and said, they said they respect his request, but they really have no plans of trading the guy. What
Well,
that causes now, and you probably know this covering baseball as long as you have a guy who has 3 years of team control left on this team. He's here
right,
until 2025 if they don't trade him or not. But what
right,
you've caused now is a rift in what you said. When it becomes public, it hardly ever ends well.
yeah.
Hardly ever. So the only way it does is extending him. And that's something the Pirates don't notoriously do.
So let me ask you something that could potentially make this be a happier ending for you know at least Reynolds. Um, what if they put a good team around him? I know that that's a strange concept, but what if they did that? What if they went out, and you and I talked about this a little bit the last time when you were on here, and the sound was it sounded like we were recording on a satellite off of Neptune. But what if they go out and see what I'm not saying they're going to sign Correa or Dansby Swanson or Carlos Rondon, okay? But what if they picked up a couple of the middle tiered free agents? What if they pick up a veteran here or there and fill in some of the spots with 1 year deals for some veterans, and you sort of say, hey, let's surround you with veterans and roll the dice to see if we can get one of those. 86 wins will get you into the playoffs in all probability. And what if they just, you know, piled up a bunch of, free agents who are, not going to be big long-term deals, but at least, hey, see if how you like it here with veterans around you.
Yeah, and I think that was the most puzzling thing about that news coming out in the first place was before this report came out that he wanted to be traded, they'd already acquired G-Man Choi at the
Hmm.
very bright beginning of the offseason. They then
Right.
pick up Carlos Santana, which I was very thrown off by because I did not think Carlos Santana would want to come to Pittsburgh with
Mhm.
the age he's at and where he's been. Then you also consider they move on from Kevin Newman and bring in Dowry Moretta, relief arm. And now recently they've picked up Vince Velasquez and Jarlin Garcia, two
Yeah.
guys that are going to help in the rotation in the bullpen. They have, as Jeff just asked, promising prospects that are going to come up and help this year that you wish would be up here right at the beginning of the crack of dawn of the season, because O'Neal Cruz probably would have swung 5 games for you last year and you wouldn't have lost 100 games again.
Yeah.
But again, it is a crazy concept to think, oh, just put a winning team around them. I agree. I mean, that would be the easiest recipe to pretty much put the whole ensemble together and make Christmas dinner great, right? Like it would just be okay. You got the ham already in Bryan Reynolds. Why not add the side dishes that'll make Christmas dinner great since it's the holiday season? You know what I mean? And
I
it
hear you.
it sucks.
It does. And when you take a look at, sometimes you got to roll the dice, and sometimes you got to bet on your own team and try your best to sort of say, look at, we may not put together a championship caliber squad, but maybe, just maybe, we can be a team that could, you know, win your 86 games, get one of the playoff spots, and then it becomes a surefire bet that life as a Pirate fan would be a lot better. If you're going to make any bets, guess where you go? You go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, we've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at betonline as well. We're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, it's where the game starts. Resetting with Ethan Smith. Hey, Ethan, I don't know in terms of the big prospects coming up through the system. We'll talk about that in a second. Pirates get the number one pick overall.
For
They're
the
going to
second
pick
time in
first.
3 years.
Second time in 3 years. So let's remind ourselves, who was the other number one pick overall?
Henry Davis.
Henry Davis, fine catching prospect. Now, how much, uh, how many more years do you think until Davis becomes a major leaguer?
Major leaguer full time or major leaguer in
Yeah,
general?
when they pulled an Adley Rutschman and say, guess what? Here's our new catcher.
Um, well, it gets very interesting now because Henry Davis, of course, being the prized possession he is as a number one overall pick, was not even the best catcher in the Pirates system this year.
Right.
That would be Endy Rodriguez, who was a guy that not even a few weeks ago was the only catcher on the Pirates 40-man roster until they brought back Tyler Heineman yesterday. Whoop-de-doo. They bring back a guy who hit 214 and can play a little defense behind the plate. Yay. Is Endy Rodriguez going to be here at the beginning of March as he should be? Probably not. He didn't see that much time in AAA, and neither did Henry Davis. So I think what ends up happening with those two is you're probably going to see one come up for like a cameo because of an injury, kind of like we saw with Liover Peguero last year, where he was here for like 2 games and then you never
Mhm.
sniffed the majors again. I think you see something like that, but Henry Davis, I think you'll get him more in the back end of the year, July, August, maybe for a couple months to supplement what's going to be a poor catching position if Endy or Davis are not here very early. But it's a wait and see game with this team because, the three favorite words that come to mind with Pirates fans: service time manipulation. It's the stupidest thing that has ever existed. And it's something that, because it's not against the rules, they're always going to do it. So
Yeah,
that's
but
the main reason why we don't see them.
how's it been working? How's it been doing? It hasn't been working, and they still trade the players away. They got a couple of the players. We last time you were on, we talked about Quinn Priester and Nick Gonzalez and what was it, Piguero? What's the
Liover
other?
Peguero.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Again, with the way this team is now, like I I don't see a downside for picking up a veteran infielder, picking up a veteran outfielder, picking up I thought, picking up Carlos Santana may just be that. He's like, hey, this gives me a chance to play every day
Hmm.
and get some swings, get some at bats, revive my career. Get a couple more players like that. And it almost seems like they have to do two things. Get a veteran who will at least be a stopgap, and every name we just said, bring him up. Bring him
Yeah.
up right now. Have him be too, like, you don't say Henry Davis is going to be, here your full-time catcher in the major leagues. Tamar John or Nick Gonzalez is not going to be your starting everyday infielder, but you have him on the team with a veteran, kind of Crash Davis nuclear it, and I don't see the downside of that, especially when we have seen. That's the thing that drives me crazy, that we have seen with Philadelphia, with San Diego, two franchises that were irrelevant just a few years ago, demonstrated there is a way to turn things around. There is a thing to make your team relevant again. And they play in the Central. Central does have the Cardinals, and they do have the Brewers, who are both fine teams. You don't know what both of those teams could take a big step back. And we know the Cubs aren't 100% sure what they're doing, and the Reds are a mess. So if there's ever a division to say, hey, what's the worst thing that happens if we just bring our young players and a stable veteran and see what we can mix together?
And you bring up a great point, and also adding to the fact that with like the additions of veteran help, those guys are not immediately being asked to be all-star major league players right off the bat. Even Mike Trout, for all that he was worth, was not that great in his first couple weeks at the major league level. Did he end up winning Rookie of the Year? Yes, that's because he had a really pretty good Angels team around him when they brought him up.
Right.
From what I remember, but
Yeah, the 2012 team contended. They were a good squad.
yeah, and Mike Trout was just a supplement to that at the time. That's all he was supposed to be. And that would be what you're saying is the initial goal here. Carlos Santana, Bryan Reynolds, Key Brian Hayes, O'Neill Cruz, the guys who are already established, let those guys stay the established parts of your team, but then have the Quinn Priesters, the Henry Davises, the Andy Rodriguez's kind of be that push for you to get to what you said, 86 wins. Let them be that little push, that shove that you need, because there's one team that did that very well this year that I think a lot of people forgot because they didn't win anything. The Atlanta Braves. Michael Harris, Vaughn Grisham, and Spencer Strider were three of the biggest reasons why they even went to where they got to
Yeah.
and chased down the New York Mets to win the NL East this year. That was really and then you mentioned Philadelphia and San Diego. Fernando Tatis Jr. was just a supplemented addition to what the Padres already had going on here. What did the Padres also do that I wish the Pirates would do, even though I know they never will? They went out and spent a boatload of money on Manny Machado, who ended up being phenomenal for them in the postseason this year,
Hmm.
and is easily, to me, the best third baseman in baseball. Shout out to Nolan Arenado, too, but I can't say a Cardinal's the best third baseman in baseball. It's just infuriating from not only being a Pirates fan standpoint, but from the fact that I know that my team isn't the only team doing this, if that
Well,
makes
the
sense.
yeah, it does make sense, and I think the Padres have forever taken away the the small market argument for a lot of people. You're not going to get a smaller market than San Diego for a major league team, and yet somehow they turned over enough cushions and recycled enough cans to say, "Hey, we're going to make our team better." And with that, one of the best ballparks in baseball, Petco Park, is going to be packed next year. And a generation of Padre fans are going to have their best memories. Jeff Cohen, our good friend there at Baseball and BBQ, says PNC Park is one of the best in baseball. A good team will fill up the stadium night after night. I hope so. I really hope so. I remember the electricity in 2013 when that place was jam packed and waving the towels and wearing the black shirts, kind of blacking out the stands. I mean, Pittsburgh can be a great sports town. I saw the fish and save Pittsburgh. Clearly, it can be a terrific sports town, but you get the sense they're dying to have a good Pirate team to get behind, to enjoy that. And why not, even if it's a short term thing, why wouldn't you try to do the thing that will get a new generation of fans hooked, or at least give them some memories?
Yeah, and that's where I kind of get upset is because for me being I don't know what kind of generation of Pirates fan I would be being 24 now because I've seen them have four winning seasons record wise, three where they actually made the postseason. For me, it's just something I'm used to. Now that I talk about the team, I look at it very differently. But from what I know from people I know in Pittsburgh, most of the time PNC Park is just a pregame hangout before you go downtown, and it shouldn't be that way, and
No,
it
it
shouldn't.
really shouldn't be. Since 2009, but since the beginning of the 2010 season, 15 out of the 30 Major League Baseball teams have won at least one pennant. And so if you're on one of those other 15, now granted, the Pirates have joined the Yankees in that discussion, which is surreal. Um, but that being said, there's really not an excuse at this point to put a decent product on the field and, at least try to give the Pirate fans one winning season.
Yeah.
Ethan Smith is here from Locked On Pirates. Let's be positive for a second, shall we? Okay? Because the way the playoffs are set up, it is possible for an unlikely team to go on a big run. Because you have the Brewers are a team filled with veterans, they could be a house of cards that collapses. Let's think about the wild card teams. You have the East has the Braves, the Mets, and the Phillies. Those are three really tough teams. Los Angeles and San Diego are in the West. So chances are the Central is only going to have one representative. But the Mets are a veteran team, and veteran teams could have off years. The Cardinals are a veteran team. A veteran team can have off years. The Phillies overachieved to get to the World Series. They could very well underachieve. Remember, they've only finished one game ahead of the Brewers in the regular season. There can be an alignment of the stars that sees the Pirates making the postseason. What has to happen in order for that to happen? And is Shelton the right guy to lead them?
Like, what has to happen? One, Bryan Reynolds still has to be on this baseball team. That's for starters. We'll see how that whole saga works itself out because it's December 14th, December 13th, depending on when you're listening to this. He has to be on this team. No ifs, ands, or buts, and in good spirits. But he's also the kind of guy I already know he's not going to sit out or do any of that holdout garbage. You're going to need Key Brian Hayes to step up in the 8-year, $70 million role that he was paid to step into. You need that to happen. The pitching assets that you've acquired in the offseason, and pretty much any asset you've acquired in the offseason, has to be a boom. I mean, there's a lot that has to go right for this team to even think about the playoffs in 2023. Derek Shelton's the kind of guy that gives me vibes that when this team does have a good, like you could go on paper and say this is a good team, he gives me the kind of vibes of the guy that will lead that team to where it needs to be. The only question I have for him, and what I've always had a question with Shelton so far, can he take that next step over? So I think if it's like once you get into predictions, the Pirates are not going to be high on any prediction board this year.
Right.
Can Shelton get them above that? Sure. I have not made an official 2023 predictions episode yet because we still have about 2 months before pitchers and catchers report. If you had to ask me what the Pirates record roughly is going to be right now, based off of the team they have, with Bryan Reynolds still on it, 75 and 87. Sad part is, being a Pirates fan, I consider that a resounding success based off of what I've seen over the last couple of years. Because if this team gets to 75 or 80 wins, 2024 looks a lot nicer than 2023 or any year prior to this rebuild.
Well, that'd be
Now,
like a nearly a 20 game improvement. I mean, that would be you're on
yes.
the verge of putting a winning product on the field.
Yes. And to get to where you're saying, I don't see 86 wins in any stretch of the imagination unless
Right.
Mitch Keller or Rowanzi Contreras all of a sudden turn into Cy Young candidates, which we've seen, as you mentioned before all the time, you've seen stranger things happen in baseball all the
And I've
time.
seen Stranger Things. I've seen
And
the TV
Stranger
show.
Things, the wonderful show as well.
Yeah.
And that's what the Pirates have to do to get to 86 wins, is run up that hill, as Kate Bush would tell you to do. But anyways, let's go back to the conversation that me and you had that nobody was able to really hear. What was the one big issue that you said the Pirates, and not only the Pirates, but a lot of other teams in baseball have that are rebuilding or have prospects that are great? You have 26 spots to fill a baseball team. Why not put the 26 best players out there?
Well, that was what I said. I can't believe this is a radical statement to make, but a baseball organization should put their 26 best healthy players on the major league roster. And if they start to play well enough to earn a larger paycheck, then cross that bridge when you get there. But the fact of the matter is this team, if you have 20, who's on the major league roster are 26 best healthy players. You can't look to your AAA squad and see any one of your 26 best players unless they're injured or rehabilitating an injury. You have to put your best players out there. When you think about you know a team like the Pirates, if they get off to a decent start, they have a decent April. You know, you can't win or lose a pennant in April, but you can put a tone to the season of, oh, we're still here. We're still here. As opposed to, well, it's May 1st and we're already 10 games out. The school's going to be out soon and the Pirates are already thinking about trading away their players. You got to give your fan bases a summer. Now, I said this on a podcast when Gabrielle Starr, former host of Locked On MLB. Gabrielle's been coming up a couple of times, but when she was on, I was saying that we were talking about the Red Sox at the time, but I think this applies to every team. A baseball team does not owe their fan base a championship. They don't. That would mean 29 franchises fail a year. And I don't believe that it's championship or bust. What a horrible way that would be to live. They owe you a summer. There's summer entertainment. And, part of me thinks that if you don't have a winning season, if you have 5 losing seasons in a row, you should lose your draft pick or something. Something needs to happen to basically create an incentive to put a good team on the field. And teams that are in perpetual rebuild, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking like, what are you have a fan base that is coming of age without, I mean, using the rule of 7. If you're, 10, 11 years old, you don't have a memory of the Pirates having a winning season. They owe you a summer. And if they can't put a winning product on the field or even look like they're trying to put one on the field starting Memorial Day, then they have, by definition, failed. Because this is their job to do that.
Yeah, and also you look at it even from the broader scope of things with sports. Once, like the Penguins, for instance, are done, or the Steelers obviously do not play during the summer, what else do sports fans in Pittsburgh have to do? Watch the Pirates. But if you want to go to PNC Park and spend your hard-earned money on parking and seats and beer and whatever you want to spend it on, wouldn't you rather spend it on a team that actually looks like it's meant to be there?
Yeah.
And that's where I agree with you, is it's not championship or bust for every team. For some teams, it may be that way, like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Braves, etc. It may be that way for them. But
Well,
for a
then there's
team
been
like,
a lot of busts. There's been a lot of busts for the Mets and the
yeah,
Yankees. I mean, there's been, anyway, I digress.
but you look at teams like Baltimore last year, for instance. What did Baltimore give their fans last year? A fun season.
Yeah.
For the most part, they didn't make the postseason, but you had Baltimore fans and of course Connor Newcomb, the host of Locked On Orioles, saying that the season was a resounding success. They didn't even have a winning record, from what I remember. They might have. I don't remember if they did or not.
They had
but
a summer. They had a summer.
Yeah.
They had a summer to go to the ball. There was a reason to go to the ballpark.
Like, actually, the best example of this would be Seattle, not this year, this past year, but the last year before that,
Right.
when they didn't even make the playoffs. But just the fact that last game of the season against the Los Angeles Angels, they had a sliver of a chance to go to the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. you would have never saw an atmosphere like that anywhere near any of these other big market stadiums that are just used
Mhm.
to it. And
Yeah.
it was just nuts. And that's what I get what you're saying is you're saying most of the league just give your fans a reason to show up to your stadium. And then guess what? If you give a reason for fans to show up, what does that generate for these owners that are already rich enough to spend anyway? Gives you more money. And it's free money pretty much out of your pocket because that's tickets that are being
Mhm.
sold and butts that are in seats and kids that are making memories at your ballpark that can actually say, wow, Dad, I enjoyed watching the Pirates play today. Not, wow, Dad, you took me to a 10-0 blowout against the St. Louis Cardinals. It's something I could talk about for hours.
Well,
But
unfortunately, we have to eventually wrap this show up. But I will
yes,
say that's what I'm hoping for. I want to see the Pirates put together, you know, give your fans something to cheer for. Come on, do the right thing there. But hey, I want to thank. It's my job is to give you all a decent podcast, and so thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your next listen, obviously make it Locked On Pirates. But for your third listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Talking about the Pirates with Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates and bringing up the astonishing concept of putting your best players on the roster. This has been Locked On MLB live stream on the 13th day of December 2022. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. That's Ethan Smith. Please call me Sully. But you know what? Don't call Ethan Sully.